Rachel, thank you so much for joining me this morning and our mentoring groups who are focusing on artist practice. They're each investigating different artists and looking at the development of those artists, how they approach the mosaic creative practice. And then in addition to that, in the classes, we also look at other artists that are not mosaicists, and we look at how they express in their own art forms. So I've got 6 of your images of your recent work that we might have a look at. But before we do that, can you just talk to me a little bit about the shift that you made when you moved into professional practice in mosaics and the shift away from your earlier career?
I played as a professional violinist for 35 years or something. And in the last probably 7 or 8 years of that, I was getting more serious about mosaic, and I was struggling to balance what I wanted to give to both of those things in terms of hours and commitment. Like the sort of the thing about playing is that you have to do the everyday training like an athlete does, and I was finding that harder to keep up and do what I wanted to do with mosaic, and in the end it was a shoulder problem that made me make the decision, which I kind of wanted to do anyway. And I think the reason it became so important to me was because in music, I mean, most of the music making I was doing was involving other people. So either chamber music, the orchestra. So, you know, in an orchestra, you've got the conductor telling you how and what to play, and the leader of the orchestra telling you, you know, what bowings and fingerings sometimes that you get to use. And within that, of course, you can find your own way of expressing. And even in, you know, like in a string quartet, you've got to, you know, it's compromising between 4 people how the finished thing is going to be, and so sometimes you can't take the risks that you want to take because it might adversely affect something for someone else to suddenly just take a risk in the middle of a concert or whatever. And of course, the best of music is when you do that and it works for everybody, like for everybody to have that possibility. But with mosaic, I just wasn't having to please anyone but myself, and it just felt really satisfying to push things as far as I wanted to without it having to worry about how it affected someone else, or I wasn't really doing it for anything but pleasing myself. And it was just exciting and somewhere that I could just get lost in, just trying anything that I wanted. And I, you know, learning a lot about myself and yeah.
You've taken that so far now that you've reached a point in your practice where your work is designed and collected for what it is. You know, you're not making work to fit a brief. You're not making work to fulfill a commission. You're not making work to go in a particular location. You're not making work to please a particular group of people. All those things are valid, and that's a different part of practice, but you've been able to focus so much on developing your own voice and your own style with your techniques that your work is clearly Rachel Bremner. When you look at it, you don't think, oh, it's, you know, a bit of this and a bit of that. It looks a bit this way. It looks a bit this way. It looks like a Rachel Bremner. And then that, you know, being true to that has allowed that your body's of work to be incredibly well received and desired in a way. Yeah.
I've worked hard at hanging on to that. Like sometimes I'll get someone asking me to do a commission, or even in terms of exhibitions and things, even moving from music where I never had to ever express what, talk about or put into words what I was expressing. It was just all the stuff that was going on inside me. And when I started making mosaics and putting stuff out there a bit, suddenly I have to, write artist statements and talk about what the meaning is, and all the sort of talk for me, all the talk in the art world felt like it was getting in the way of the way I express myself in any medium. So it really does feel like to me that I'm making music when I make mosaics in that sense. So I've had to, and it's particularly the last 3 or 4 years, I've resented having to, like even when you're filling in an application to do an exhibition or something, the sort of speak that you have to do, the sort of, making it, putting it into words that in fact to me are kind of a bit meaningless in terms of what, but I have to do that to get the spot in the exhibition. And in this exhibition that I've been working, and I think that's part of the reason why I've enjoyed it, is I decided to call it Songs Without Words. So the exhibition, that none of the works were having titles,
Mm-hmm.
And there wouldn't be words with it. So what I want is people to see the piece and feel whatever they feel.
Yeah.
And for me, the whole, and particularly the last few years, all this COVID stuff, and just every time I've had any sort of dark time in my life, the comfort that I get, the huge comfort that I get, can be from a piece of music or a piece of art where I feel like I'm connected to that person because I can feel that they're feeling the things that I think. And it's almost like having someone just sitting beside you. And I think that's underestimated sometimes as the most important thing that music and art can do for people when it gets to when it forces people to present their work in a way that's not right for them.
It's great that you've been able to identify that within yourself as something that's necessary for your practice, and then it's also admirable that you've been able to hold on to it, because I think within within the art world there is so much of that. There is so much of what's it about and what does it mean and what does it say and the theory behind it and all that kind of thing. Yeah. And it takes away then from the experience, I suppose, and can take away from the creative experience on your behalf. Okay, so it'd be a good chance now to have a little bit of a look at some of the work that you've been developing for this show, and Songs Without Words. What would you like to tell us about these?
My work nearly all the time starts from one piece of material, or maybe 3 or 4 pieces that I just play with for a bit and arrange, and then once I've stuck something down, I'm off. And so with this piece in particular, I just thought, right, I had this piece of big yellow stuff, and I thought, right, well, I'll try and make something work, and which is often how I do it. I just find something that for instance, even a color combination that I think is weird, or could I use a color that I actually don't like and make it into something I like? Any of those sorts of questions, which like one challenge to start with, and then it grows from there.
So it's almost like you're creating a problem for yourself and then solving it. Yeah.
And that's really big in everything about that I do in my work. Like if something's going too easily, I'm bored.
Yeah.
So I'll have to put in something that then I have to challenge myself with.
Yeah.
Which
And
is what that's the thing that gets me in and gets me into a like it's almost like a meditative space where I can, you know, where you lose time.
It's almost a mindfulness practice in a way.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because I'm, you know, I do work with quite small pieces a lot of the time. And it's very slow. So, and I haven't worked out any sort of composition beforehand. So that makes it even slower because I'm, you know how it is, you spread out a little bit of thing. And if you're going off in one direction, then you can't follow something the other way. So that's the biggest challenge for me in working is keeping a hold on a sense of composition while you're improvising.
And how big are these works, Rachel?
They're all the same size and they're all 30 by 30 centimeters. Yeah. And my idea actually with this series is that I wanted them to all be that size, and I wanted to set it up in the gallery so that it actually looked like ancient manuscript, because the first musical manuscript was square, and have them all at different heights and sort of two together, then maybe three within a sort of, you know, state, not actual lines, but sort of within, formatted like that. Just, you know, so it wasn't just pieces lined up straight on a wall. No, yeah, so that the way that you assemble the exhibition and the placement of things in relation to one another is part of the performance, I suppose you could say. Yeah. How you present it, what you place next to, which work you place next to, why you've placed works together. And I noticed this is a series of these three, the first three. So the first one, this is the second one, and then this is the third one, all seem to relate quite a lot, and in terms of the palette. And do you work in that way? Do you connect pieces in terms of their palette, or is that just intuitively how it came about? I just make stuff and then work out their relationship to each other after I've done them. So I mean, sometimes I will do one piece and then sort of think I'll just keep going with that and do another piece that's sort of a bit like that or has something in connection with the previous piece. And then sometimes I'll just start a piece that's just completely out of the blue and bears no relationship to, and then that might spark something else. And then it's a matter of putting them all together in the end. Yeah. And these pieces of pizza, the red and the Merlot-y colours, how did you cut that? Is that a wet saw or a glass grinder, or how do you do? Yeah, so it's a wet saw. And you can cut to about, I think, 1.5 centimetres of marble and stuff even. And you can get tight curves. Wow. It's pretty. I don't actually use it all that much anymore, and you know, that was another thing. I thought, oh, I'll pull that out and do something weird with some of these funny odd shaped bits of. So your materials led in a way. I think that's that's one of the things when I first started learning from you was that I found a real challenge, because I'm the opposite. I'm complete opposite. You're saying you start with, you know, you play with materials and you instinctively pick up this material and that material, and then you instinctively place them where you feel they're right, and then you work around them and you flow from that again instinctively. And my approach is completely opposite of that. So then I find that overwhelming to think that you would just intuitively play, but it's such a refreshing approach in a way, isn't it? And again, it doesn't have to be about anything, and then what it is about is more subconscious. And I
but by no means am I saying that they're not about anything. I know that they are deeply speaking, very deeply. They come from a very deep place.
It's often about stuff that I don't want to talk about with people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like sometimes it's really lovely watch someone react in a way where you know you've done what I like to receive from some, you know, from people's work or music or whatever, and it makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah.
You know, you would have that too.
And when it really speaks to them and reach them on a in a deep place, in their spirit or heart, or however you want to describe it.
Yeah.
And you, as we were talking earlier before the recording, we were talking about that you are spending more and more time in the ceramic studio and making vessels and other things. And I've noticed that the ceramics is also starting to make its way into the mosaic. So in here we've got, is this terracotta or?
No, it's clay that I when my dog died, I had to get in a digger to dig a hole to bury him, and it's the clay that he dug out, which I then sat after I filled the grave. You know, sat processing this clay, howling. But it feels really beautiful, and I mean they're funny bits in this. Like I just was playing with it one day in the studio, and it was quite funny actually, because I just wanted, you know, to some random pieces just to see what it might look like. And then I heard someone the next time I went to the studio and they'd come out the kiln saying, you know, well, what the fuck, who the fuck made these sort of thing? Like what the fuck is that supposed to be? It was just so funny. Anyway.
That's from the toddlers class. There's something completely offensive.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Actually, that's very important to me and very special. That's so funny.
But that's, you know, it's funny like that, because that's how it is. Like, because of the whole COVID thing, I've been doing a lot of walking with my new dog, little puppy, and collecting lots of stone just from around where I live. And I have also started doing a bit of spoon carving. So in this piece, there's also all the refuse from the spoon carving, and all that stone is from down the side of my road. So and it's like because that stone to me, I mean, I've walked past it every day since we lived here, which is like 30 years or something, and it's, you know, you just sort of see it beside the road and it just doesn't look at all interesting. And yet I've picked up some before and used it for bits, and then I started actually liking the fact that it looks kind of so ugly, but that you can make something really beautiful with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I like that aspect too of using things unexpectedly in a way and trying to make it into something that means something, or that looks beautiful. That, you know. And so in one of the other pieces
this
that
one?
you've got.
Is it this one?
Yeah. So that, and that is the same rock, but I was walking it was just up from our gate, and there was some big pieces of this rock, and sometimes it's hard to get thin bits enough that are easy to cut. So, and it looked like one was splitting open a bit, so I thought, well, I'll get that thin bit off the top of it and take it, and I opened it up and it had all these beautiful colours in it.
Yeah, it looks like it's sort of it's delaminated from a bigger piece.
Yeah.
And it does have a really landscape mapping feeling to it. It looks like a aerial view of a landscape, paths and roads. And,
it does, doesn't it? Yeah.
You know, order and chaos. Farmlands and houses and creeks and roads and fences and within that.
And then I think the there's another piece. What's the
Yeah,
other piece
yeah.
in the stone?
One here, yeah. Can
Oh
you
no,
see
so
that?
there's one that I haven't included, which
Oh,
is
okay.
with that same stone but completely different again. Yeah,
And this is a really
which was the
a
first
different
one
one here, which is including bones, oyster shells. What else have we got in this one, Rachel?
Yeah, shells, slates, multi. Those white bits there are ceramic. The same sort of, just yeah. Yeah, and that's just all stuff that I pick up on my walks, and then some of the wood shavings again.
It has a really prehistoric kind of feeling. Look, whether it's a fossil or a sea creature or a insect or a shellfish, or it has all these sorts of connotations to it. It suggests, in a way, that's what makes it so exciting as well, is that it isn't it's not a one-hit wonder. And that's what we talk about in class a lot too, is that like an artwork that doesn't sort of smack you in the face with what it is, but lets you work it out, lets you discover things about it, and engages the audience or engages the viewer to get to know the work on a number of levels. And it's layered, so it brings you in on one level, and then it engages you further and further and further, and then it engages the imagination, and there's technical questions and material questions, and it's symbolic, and what is it symbolic of, and what does it remind you of, and what does it remind you of, and everybody's got a different feeling of everyone has a different interpretation of the same thing, which is essentially an assemblage of symbols and colors and materials, but we read them in so many different ways.
And it's funny because of the way I work, I can't look at a piece like until it's finished, like, because I'm working small areas, even in a smallish piece like this, and I almost have to walk away from it for a day or two before I can work out whether I think it works and what I like about it, or that's a big thing for me. Like, if you feel too safe in what you're doing and it's too predictable, and throw something in to challenge yourself, make things difficult for yourself. Don't take the easy option. If you, like, for instance, if you're making a work and it's background, don't think, oh, right now I'll just do the background. I mean, that's different for some particular sort of jobs and things, but for your own thing, don't just do squares in the background. Think, what else can I do? How can I throw something in that
creates a challenge? All right, we are going to sign off now. You can hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Oh, what a challenge. We have to finish now because we have another appointment in 4 minutes, but so we have to another recording. But I would just want to say big thank you to you for sharing this with us today, and really appreciate it. As always, every time
thanks for having me,
have a conversation with you, I come away feeling warmer, fuller, enriched in some way. I do, honestly, I do. And I think
it's mutual.
Oh, thanks, Rach. But I think at this particular time in the world that there's so much crap going on, and it's just trying to find those things that fill you up and nourish you. And that is creative practice. But that is also people and connections with people, and finding your tribe of people who really understand. And what you said initially, I think, is that you know, when we were talking earlier about how music and art has really been nourishment for you and really been made you feel calm, made you feel safe, made you feel brought light and joy, and that is an underestimated thing in our environment, in our current climate. It's where sort of fear is peddled daily. We are ignoring the things that nourish us and ignoring the things that that can warm our hearts and souls, and those things are often the arts, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
And sometimes even not just.
All right, well, we could talk.
Sometimes it's
again and again, and I think probably what we might do is would be lovely to continue this in another. I don't know, would you be open to that? Maybe another few months we have another get together, and I think everything you say, everything you've said today is so valuable for the mosaic community, and well, not just the mosaic community, but and having artists such as yourself who are at such a high level of professional practice, who really you're not wasting time, you're not stuffing about, you're really nailing it, you're really doing what you need to do and the way you need to do it, to express what you need to do, you need to say, and you're uncompromising, and that's something to achieve, really something to look up to and to admire. And I think we need more more. There are these role models such as yourself within our community, but it's really great to have you very present and to be able to share that with people who are sort of earlier on in their creative journey. All right, Rachel, we'll go now, but big love to Flossie and to Eli, and thank her for helping out with the Zoom, and we'll be back in touch soon. Okay, bye.